They told you to think before you act. But what if that's exactly what's kept you stuck? What if thinking too much? Thinking has become the cage that looks like caution, but feels a lot like fear. You've rehearsed the plan, visualized the outcome, waited for the moment that felt just right. And while you waited, someone else moved. They didn't overthink. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't even have your talent. But they had something you haven't been taught: to value momentum. This is the habit no one teaches. The one that separates the planners from the producers, the thinkers from the builders, the stuck from the unstoppable. So before your mind drags you back into comfort, ask yourself one question. What if everything changes? The moment you move first. Think later. The success habit nobody teaches. Nobody. There's a moment in every life when the hesitation becomes louder than the dream, where the questions multiply, where the overthinking sharpens its claws, where every move is paralyzed by the obsession with getting it right. And that right there is where most people die, with potential still pumping in their veins. You've been taught to wait, to plan, to prepare, until you're perfect, to not make a move until the vision is clear, the risk is low, the timing is right. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if movement is the thing that creates clarity? What if the fastest way to figure it out is to start? What if the winners aren't the ones who think better, but the ones who move first? You've been told to analyze before you act, but analysis is not the same as progress. Intelligence is not the same as execution, and perfectionism is often just procrastination in disguise, dressed up in noble words but built on fear. Move first, think later doesn't mean act without purpose. It means don't worship the blueprint more than the bricks. It means your growth doesn't live in contemplation. It lives in momentum. Because momentum is a force. Once it starts moving, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't negotiate with doubt. It creates its own gravity, and everything else begins to orbit around it. Most people are stuck, not because they're lazy, but because they've made the mistake of thinking too long, thinking too small, thinking themselves into a box of inaction and calling it strategy. But history doesn't remember the most careful, it remembers the most committed. Edison didn't wait until the light bulb was guaranteed. He moved thousands of times. Ford didn't wait for market validation. He moved and created the market. Walt Disney, he wasn't playing it safe. He mortgaged everything on a mouse while the experts laughed, because he knew something they didn't. The future belongs to the ones who build it, not just the ones who think about it. You want to rise, then move, not blindly, not recklessly, but urgently. Because action does something that thinking never can. It rewrites who you believe you are. Each time you move, you override the identity of the hesitant one. Each time you act, you collect evidence, and evidence is louder than fear. You don't become confident by affirmations. You become confident by motion, by walking into the unknown and realizing you didn't die, you adapted. That's how self-belief is born, not from theory, from contact. This is the habit nobody teaches. Imperfect action, ruthless movement, strategic risk. Schools reward answers, but life rewards execution. You can have the right idea and still lose if someone else moves first. You think the world owes you time, it doesn't. The window is open now, and it's closing with every second you delay. Every day you wait to move. Someone else is building, not better, just faster. And in a world obsessed with speed, motion wins, not IQ, not talent, momentum. And here's the paradox. When you move first, your brain catches up. You weren't built to figure it all out in advance. You were built to course correct in real time, to leap and learn, to trust your ability to adapt under pressure. This is how evolution works. It doesn't reward the strongest. It rewards the most responsive, the most decisive, the ones who can move when others freeze. So if you're waiting for clarity, stop. Clarity is not a prerequisite. Clarity is a consequence. You don't find your purpose, your calling, your mission by sitting still and journaling about it. You find it by moving, by trying, by failing forward so many times that failure becomes your teacher, not your identity. Because the truth is, most of what you need to know about yourself is revealed through motion, through friction, through doing the thing you thought you weren't ready for, and realizing you're more capable than you've been told. Most people never move because they want guarantees. They want certainty. They want applause in advance. But builders don't wait for applause. They create proof, they go first, and they let the results do the talking. So go, launch the business before you feel ready. Start the channel before the niche is perfect. Apply for the role before your resume is polished. Speak before your voice is flawless. Lead before the followers show up. The world doesn't respond to potential. It responds to power. And power lives in action. In doing the uncomfortable thing before you're convinced. Because conviction grows with the climb. And yes, you will fall. But the fall is part of the rise. It teaches you where your limits are. And more importantly, that you can go beyond them. You want to know who becomes successful? It's not the person who waits for conditions to align. It's the one who says, I'll move first and adjust on the way. They treat life like a lab, not a lecture. They build as they go. They ship before it's perfect. They understand the cost of delay is higher than the cost of a misstep because the graveyard is filled with brilliant thinkers. People who planned endlessly, studied, deeply polished carefully, and never moved. Don't let that be you. Don't worship potential so long that it rots inside you. You weren't born to plan a legacy. You were born to build one, in real time. With messy beginnings, imperfect launches, chaotic starts. The first version won't be pretty, but the second will be better. And the third will be undeniable, because that's what motion gives you. Leverage over time. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting with data. You're evolving with each step, and the person who evolves the fastest wins. The world will tell you to wait, to be realistic, to make sure it's safe, but look around. The safest path is often the slowest death, the corporate ladder, the maybe next year, the life of hesitation. Meanwhile, the ones who moved, the ones who launched, pivoted, adjusted, they're free. Not because they had better resources, but because they chose to move while others were still doubting. This is the new intelligence: speed, adaptation, relentless, committed action. If what you just heard made you nod in agreement, please like and share with someone who needs a ray of light today. There is no prize for waiting. There is no trophy for being the most cautious person in the room. There is no legacy written for the one who had the best intentions, but never shipped. You don't get remembered for the ideas you almost executed. Because the world only changes when someone moves through fear, moves through doubt, moves while the critics are still watching from the sidelines, whispering the word reckless to hide their own inaction. But reckless to whom? To the system that keeps you small, to the people who gave up on themselves long ago. If moving forward without permission makes you reckless, then be reckless with precision. Be dangerous to your own limitations. Be bold enough to bet on yourself before the evidence arrives. Because the truth is, your life has been waiting on you. Not on more research. Not on another book. Not on one more clarity session. Just a decision, and not just any decision. A decision that doesn't need applause, doesn't need consensus, doesn't need certainty. A decision that burns the fallback plan. A decision that says, I'll figure it out when I get there, because not getting there is no longer an option. That's the kind of decision that makes history. That's the kind of movement that turns a whisper of potential into an undeniable force. Move first, because thought without action breeds self-doubt. But action, even imperfect, chaotic, Half-baked action creates momentum. And momentum is sacred. It builds proof. It silences hesitation. It clears the fog. You don't need to see the whole road. You need to take the next right step, and then the next, and then the next, because purpose is often revealed through progress. It doesn't arrive at your door. You have to chase it down with calloused hands and relentless feet. Think about every breakthrough in your life so far. Did it come from a perfectly structured plan? Or did it come from a leap? From a moment of discomfort where you said yes before you were ready, and somehow you rose into it. That wasn't luck. That was alignment. That was life responding to your movement with opportunity. But the universe doesn't conspire with hesitation. It conspires with those in motion. Most people don't fail because they weren't good enough. They fail because they paused too long. They let the voice in their head grow louder than the one in their chest. They started thinking when they should have been moving, you want to lead, then act. Because leadership isn't about titles, it's about timing. Leaders act before it's obvious. That's why the world pays them more. Not because they're smarter, but because they absorb risk that others avoid. They go first. You want to create wealth? Move fast, because wealth doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards velocity, speed of learning, speed of iteration, speed of decisions. And no, that doesn't mean chaos. It means decisive discipline. You think you need more confidence? You don't. You need more reps. Confidence is not a feeling you wait for. It's a consequence of execution. Every time you show up, not when it's easy, not when it's ideal, but because it's necessary. You wire your identity to success. You don't ask if you're ready, you become ready by being in motion. This is the habit no one teaches because it doesn't sell well. There's no secret formula, just you doing the work. Before the plan is perfect, before the room claps, before the fear goes away. And when you feel resistance, because you will, don't fight it with more thinking. Fight it with movement. Overthinking is not preparation. It's self-sabotage. Dressed in analysis. And the most dangerous thing you can do is confuse thought with progress. You can't think your way into self-respect. You act your way into it. And once you've done that long enough, something beautiful happens. You stop needing hype. You stop waiting for motivation. You move because it's who you are now. And the people who watch from the sidelines, the ones who still think, still talk, still analyze, let them. Let them call you impulsive. Let them question your pace. Let them scroll while you build. Because soon they won't be able to ignore what you've created. Your work will outlive their words. Your discipline will outlast their doubt. Because in a world paralyzed by overthinking, speed is your superpower. So here's the reality most won't face. You don't need a plan. You need a pattern. A pattern of decisive action, of starting, of shipping, of choosing motion over mastery, and letting mastery emerge from the momentum. You don't need 10 steps. You need one bold decision, followed by proof, followed by repetition, followed by results. And that not your degree, not your following, not your strategy is what will build your success. So stop waiting. Stop explaining. Stop romanticizing the version of you who's almost ready. That person is fiction. The real you. The builder. He's already here. She's already awake. They're already hungry. And all they need is for you to stop thinking and move. You don't rise by thinking about how to rise. You rise by moving through the discomfort most people run from. The discomfort of starting when you're not sure, the discomfort of launching when you feel exposed, the discomfort of building in silence with no guarantee anyone will clap. But that discomfort is sacred. It is the price of becoming. And most will never pay it because they're too busy negotiating with comfort, too busy worshiping caution, too busy waiting for the fear to leave before they move. But here's the truth. Fear doesn't leave. It follows motion, and eventually it can't keep up. So don't try to eliminate fear. Outrun it, outwork it, outlast it, with so much relentless momentum that it can't find a seat at your table. You don't conquer fear with mindset alone. You conquer it with evidence. Evidence that you moved anyway, that you acted with doubt in your lungs and pressure in your chest, and you still showed up. And when you do that long enough, you realize something. It was never fear you needed to defeat. It was hesitation. And hesitation dies in the presence of daily action. This is why most people lose, not because they're incapable, not because they're untalented, but because they think themselves out of action. They try to build a perfect bridge before taking a single step. But the bridge doesn't appear before the step. It appears after. Step brick, adjust, repeat. The path is not paved before the journey. The path is carved by the journey, and the ones who win are the ones who are willing to look foolish at first, unrefined, at first unready at first, and do it anyway. Because every master was once a beginner who moved before they had permission. Every leader was once invisible. Every breakthrough looked like chaos in the beginning. But what separates them from the rest? They moved anyway, not because they had more confidence, but because they had more commitment. And commitment doesn't wait for clarity. Commitment creates clarity. This is how real transformation happens. Not through inspiration, through execution, through waking up every day and moving the needle even when it's boring, even when it's thankless, even when it doesn't look like it's working. Because consistency is louder than genius, and motion is more profitable than perfection. You don't become successful by studying movement. You become successful by becoming a mover. Look at anyone you admire, anyone who's built something real. You'll find a pattern. They don't over-identify with planning. They over-identify with producing. They don't ask, "Will this be perfect?" They ask, "Will this build momentum?" Because they understand that velocity matters more than elegance. Because they understand that an ugly win beats a pretty excuse every time. And maybe you've tried before, maybe you've failed, maybe you've embarrassed yourself, launched something that flopped, spoken up, and got silence. Good. That means you've touched real effort. That means you were in the arena, and that's where life lives. In the mess, in the motion, in the uncomfortable, unpolished, undeniable truth that you are still becoming, and the only way out is through. Don't fear failure. Fear staying the same. Fear waking up a year from now in the exact same place, same income, same mindset, same excuses, and realizing you weren't stuck. You were still just waiting to feel ready. But ready is a mirage, and the longer you chase it, the more your momentum dies in the desert of indecision. So burn the map, build the road with your feet, take the risk, make the call. Launch the page, start the first chapter. Show up when no one's clapping. Move because movement is the signal. It tells the world I am serious. It tells your brain we're doing this. It tells resistance you're not in control anymore. And it doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be now. One email, one rep, one video, one call, one bold conversation. You don't need to leap across the mountain. You need to take one committed step without looking back. And here's the part they don't tell you. Once you move, everything else starts moving too. You find resources you didn't know existed. You meet people who were invisible when you were still on the couch. You get ideas that wouldn't come when you were researching. You attract momentum because motion attracts mirrors. And suddenly you're no longer chasing change. You are the change. You're no longer reacting. You're leading. Not because you're more talented, but because you're the one who had the courage to move. This world will not wait for you. Time is not pausing for your fear, and success does not lower itself to match your hesitation. You rise, or you remain. You move, or you wait. You build, or you scroll. And every day without fail, you are voting for your future with your feet. So the only question that matters is this: where are you walking? If this resonates with you, please give it a like to keep you motivated on this journey, and don't forget to share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And now we continue. Where you walk each day, that's your real affirmation. Not your words, not your vision board, not your morning routine. If it ends at 8 a.m. and fades by noon, your calendar is your creed. Your habits are your truth. Your movement is your message. Because here's the brutal reality. The world doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you prove you'll tolerate. And when you tolerate waiting, when you tolerate endless revision, when you tolerate comfort disguised as caution, you don't just delay your life, you deny it. You've been trained to prepare, to analyze, to think it through from every angle. But over-planning is the polite cousin of procrastination, and preparation without movement is just fear in a suit. Real builders don't wait to feel certain. They move fast, fail loud, adjust hard, and keep moving. Because momentum loves the brave. It doesn't come to the quiet mind that hesitates. It comes to the feet that take the first step. Let this sink in. Your greatest breakthroughs will never come wrapped in certainty. They'll come wrapped in resistance, in the sweat of doing the thing you've avoided, in the voice that says, "I'm not ready," and the next voice that says, "Move anyway." Because readiness is not a requirement, it's a result. You become ready by becoming in motion. And the sooner you understand that, the faster you'll outpace everyone who's still waiting for the perfect strategy. Most people are brilliant in theory, talented in silence, powerful in potential. But life doesn't pay you for potential. It pays you for proof. So what's your proof? What's the evidence that you're not just talking about change, but walking it? Where are the risks? The launches? The public failures that shaped private strength? If you have none, then it's time to stop playing the victim of overthinking and start playing the role you were born for, the builder. Every day you sit still, you reinforce the identity of the one who's always waiting. But every day you move even 1 inch, you begin to rewire who you are. You begin to collect data, to reshape your brain, to remind your soul that fear doesn't own you, discipline does. And when discipline becomes your identity, motion becomes your default. You don't stall. You start. You don't delay. You decide. You don't seek permission. You perform. This is the real separation. The line between the few who rise and the many who remain. And it's not a question of skill. It's a question of speed. Not rushing recklessly, but executing ruthlessly. Choosing motion over mood. Execution over emotion. Clarity through doing instead of waiting. Because winners don't win by waiting until it's clear. They win by becoming so consistent that clarity eventually becomes inevitable. So what are you still holding back? That business idea, that brand, that move you keep pushing to next quarter. The conversation you've rehearsed but never initiated. Ask yourself, what if you acted on it today? Not perfectly, not with a 12-step launch plan, but with one move, just one. Send the email, film the video, write the page, say the words, take the leap. You don't need to crush the mountain, you just need to stop staring at it. Because nothing kills power faster than stagnation, and nothing builds it faster than motion, no matter how small. So if you're stuck, don't go back to the whiteboard, go back to the battlefield. Take one step, no matter how shaky. Because if you're not moving, you're decaying. Ideas rot when they're not used. Confidence erodes when it's not expressed. Opportunities evaporate when they're not pursued, and the clock. It doesn't care that you're waiting, it just keeps moving. So the only thing left to do is move with it. And when you do, don't expect instant results. Expect instant proof that you're becoming someone different. That proof, that's your new fuel. When you launch something imperfect and survive it, That's power. When you speak up and no one claps but you keep showing up, that's fire. When you misadjust and go again without spiraling, that's identity. That's next-level movement. Because what you're building isn't just a project. It's not just income. It's not just achievement. It's you. You are building you. Not the version that hesitates, not the version that plays small, but the one who trusts himself enough to move even in the dark, especially in the dark. Because the next version of you, he doesn't wait for direction, she doesn't need applause, they don't require external clarity to activate internal fire. They move, and movement makes them undeniable. So let this be the line in the sand, not the end of a video, the beginning of a new phase, the death of hesitation, the birth of rhythm, not motivation, not hype, but identity-backed action. Because once you've tasted what it feels like to move without fear, to act without apology, to ship without delay, you'll never go back. You'll look at who you used to be, the version of you who needed to feel ready, and you'll smile. Not with shame, but with respect, because he got you here. And now it's time to move without him. You're not here to analyze your life to death. You're here to build it. And builders don't just dream. They decide, they move, they execute. Because they know what you now know. Movement is not a reaction. It is an identity. A way of being. A new kind of oxygen. You don't wait for the world to invite you in. You break the door. Build the room and own the blueprint. This is what it means to lead your life from the front, to stop treating every decision like surgery and start treating it like fuel. You move first and trust that your mind, your resources, your clarity will catch up. The truth is, you already know what to do. You've always known that next step. It's been whispering to you for months, maybe years. You've just drowned it out with logic, doubt, distractions, noise, but it's still there, still waiting. And all it wants is one thing for you to finally listen and move. No more prep cycles, no more asking the same people for advice. They're too scared to follow themselves. No more faking momentum by calling fear strategy. Because here's what happens when you move. You become undeniable to yourself first, and then to the world. Not because of what you said, not because of what you posted, but because of what you did when no one else was willing to move. And when you move enough times, something irreversible happens. The old identity starts to dissolve, and the new one, the one built in sweat, risk, execution becomes permanent. You no longer ask, "What if I fail?" You ask, "What happens if I don't try?" And now that you've tasted momentum, you can't go back. You won't go back, because forward is home now. The noise, you've tuned it out. The fear, you've trained it. The perfectionism, you've fired it, because power doesn't live in perfection. It lives in pace. It lives in decisions made in discomfort, in goals chased without guarantees, in identity forged through friction. So what happens now? Now, you stop delaying. Now, you stop rehearsing. Now, you build, and you build with urgency, with audacity, with the kind of discipline that rewires your very DNA. The kind that says, "I don't wait to be chosen, I choose myself." And that shift, that's everything. Because once you choose yourself, you stop waiting for opportunity. You become the opportunity. So go. Write the post, start the podcast, launch the brand, make the call. Have the conversation, send the invoice, build the thing, even if it's ugly, even if no one claps, even if you're the only one who believes in it right now. Because that's how belief is built, not by waiting for others to give it to you, but by doing so much that they have no choice but to believe it's real. And when it gets quiet again, and it will, when you're alone with the weight of everything you said you'd do, when the motivation fades, and all that's left is the mirror, you'll have two choices. Return to thinking, or return to moving. And if you've been listening, you already know the answer, because now motion is your identity. Action is your new default. Execution is your peace and stillness. Stillness isn't rest. It's the space between strikes. There will always be another reason to wait, always another fear, always another excuse, dressed up like logic. But those aren't signs. They're tests. And now you don't wait for signs, you become the signal. Because those who move first don't just win faster, they win forever. They set the standard. They change the game. They lead the shift. So from this point forward, the question is no longer, should I? It's, how fast can I? How fast can I execute? How fast can I launch? Learn, adapt, repeat. How fast can I shed this hesitation and trade it for rhythm? Because when you replace hesitation with rhythm, you become unstoppable. Not perfect, not flawless, but inevitable. This is your identity now? Not the one who plans, not the one who waits, not the one who watches, but the one who moves. Moves first, moves without permission. Moves until the results are so loud they can't be ignored. Because the builders are rising, and the world belongs to the ones who stopped overthinking and started moving like it was already theirs. You don't need to think about becoming powerful, you need to act powerfully. Today, not because you're ready, but because you finally remembered, you always were, absolutely. Here's a cinematic outro for Move First, Think Later. The Success Habit. Nobody teaches. Written with clever, subtle persuasion, not loud or pushy, but grounded, bold, and final. You've heard enough. Not because the message is finished, but because the next chapter isn't written with words, it's written with motion. Most will close this video and carry on thinking just a little harder, waiting just a little longer, and wondering why life still feels like pause. But you don't need more thoughts. You need evidence. One bold move, one imperfect step, one act of defiance against the hesitation that used to run your life. The truth is, clarity comes after courage. Confidence comes after motion. Success. It's never been about knowing everything. It's always been about moving before you're certain and trusting that who you become along the way will be far greater than the version of you that waited. So don't scroll. Don't save this for later. Don't wait for perfect. You already know what to do, and now you move.